I used to think confidence was about being loud, standing out, and always knowing what to say. But the more I chased that version, the smaller I felt inside. Like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't. Then one moment shattered everything I believed. I realized that real confidence doesn't roar, it reassures. And what I discovered in that silence changed the way I show up in every room. Want to know why it matters more than ever today? If you've ever questioned your confidence, hit like and subscribe. We're growing through this together. There was a time I thought confidence meant performing. In high school, I was the girl who laughed the loudest at parties, gave the class presentations with dramatic flair, and filled every awkward silence with chatter. People called me brave, bold, even intimidating. But what they didn't know, what I barely admitted to myself, was that I felt terrified the entire time. Terrified of being seen too deeply. I would rehearse conversations before they happened, analyze my tone after every text, and crumble inside when someone misunderstood me. I once left a dinner in downtown Denver just to cry in my car because someone said I seemed too much. That sentence haunted me. I wasn't being confident. I was being loud enough to distract from my fear of being inadequate. That wasn't bravery, that was survival. And it worked until it didn't. Because one day, the noise stopped being enough. It happened during a random Tuesday morning Zoom call of all things. My manager asked me to lead a client update, and for the first time, I didn't feel like performing. I didn't fake a smile or over-explain. I spoke slowly, simply. I paused. I breathed. And when the call ended, one of the clients messaged me privately to say, "You have a very calming presence." That moment cracked something open. I didn't know confidence could feel like that. Quiet, grounded, peaceful. I always thought it had to roar to be real. But in that silence, I felt the most like myself. It was the first time I didn't feel like I had to defend my worth. The realization hit me. Confidence isn't about being loud. It's about being safe with yourself, being able to sit in your truth even if no one claps. That day, I started the journey back to myself. Not the girl who needed the room's attention, but the woman who trusts her own presence even when no one's looking. That's why this conversation matters. Because so many of us are chasing the performance of confidence instead of its essence. We think if we talk louder, dress sharper, or walk faster, we'll finally feel enough. But what if true confidence is something softer, quieter, and deeper than that? In this video, we're going to break it all down. I'll share how I learned to feel safe in myself, physically, socially, and emotionally, and how you can start that journey too. Because confidence isn't a show, it's a shelter. Okay, quick pause. How are you really doing today? Like, if I could sit across from you right now with 2 mugs of coffee between us, no filters, no pretending, what would you say? Because I've been on both sides, faking strength and finally feeling it. And if you're in that in-between space, I see you. Let's breathe together for a sec and dive in gently. You don't have to be loud to be powerful. You just have to be here. And you are. We've been sold this shiny version of confidence that's all about volume. Speak louder, take up space, command the room. But that's not the whole picture. That's performance. Real confidence doesn't need to announce itself. It doesn't show off. It shows up, quietly, calmly, consistently. And here's the thing. A lot of people who seem confident are just terrified of being exposed. They've mastered the mask, not the muscle. Confidence isn't pretending you're not scared. It's trusting yourself enough to keep going anyway. It's not the roar of the lion. It's the heartbeat you steady on your own. We confuse confidence with charisma. But while charisma attracts, confidence anchors. And once I understood that, I stopped chasing applause and started building trust with myself. I used to think confidence started with how you looked. Like, if I could just fix that one thing, my skin, my thighs, my posture, then I'd finally feel good enough. I remember scrolling through Instagram late at night, comparing my real life to someone else's filtered highlight reel. I'd zoom in on my own photos, picking apart everything I didn't like, everything I thought made me less than. I wasn't looking at myself, I was hunting for flaws. I tried every fix I could. New skincare routines, endless squats, YouTube workouts, Pinterest affirmations taped to my mirror. And none of it stuck, because every time I fixed something, I'd find a new thing to hate. confidence kept slipping away like sand through my fingers, no matter how tightly I tried to hold it. Then I started working out, not for aesthetics, but for sanity. I walked around Green Lake in Seattle one morning, just needing to move my body after a brutal day. No headphones, just breath and steps. And somewhere between mile 2 and 3, I realized something. My body wasn't broken. It wasn't a problem to be fixed. It was with me. It had carried me through so much. Late-night study sessions, heartbreak, grief, joy, laughter. And I had been treating it like an enemy. That walk changed everything. I didn't suddenly fall in love with every inch of myself. But I stopped fighting. I started listening. I began treating my body like a teammate, not a project. And that's when I noticed the shift. I stood a little taller, even on bad hair days. I stopped hiding in group photos. I wore the dress I used to save for when I lost 5 pounds. And it's not about becoming this glowing, body-positive queen who never has insecure moments. That's not real either. Confidence in your body doesn't mean you adore every angle. It means you don't let your reflection decide your worth. It means you show up even when you feel bloated, even when your skin is breaking out, even when the scale doesn't budge, because your value didn't come from those things to begin with. I stopped editing every photo before posting it. I let my real face be seen, and the world didn't end. In fact, something unexpected happened. People related more, they trusted me more. I became safe to them because I was being honest. So if you're waiting to feel confident until your body looks a certain way, I need you to hear this. That version of confidence doesn't exist. The confidence that lasts is built while you're still uncomfortable. It grows while you're showing up imperfectly, not after you've arrived. You don't need a new body. You need a new relationship with the one you already have. What part of this hit you the hardest so far? I'd love to hear how your view of confidence is shifting. Drop a comment and let's talk it through. I used to think social confidence meant being the loudest person in the room, the one cracking jokes, holding court, speaking without fear. I'd watch people like that at parties, in meetings, at school, and think, wow, they've got it. Meanwhile, I'd rehearse conversations in my head before even saying hi. I'd replay everything I said after I got home. And if someone didn't smile back or seemed distracted, I took it personally. I assumed I had said something wrong, or worse, that I was wrong. But here's the twist. Some of the people I thought were the most confident, they told me later they were overcompensating. One friend admitted that she talks nonstop at dinners because silence makes her panic. Another said he throws himself into conversations, so no one sees how uncomfortable he is with himself. That cracked something open in me. What if social confidence isn't about being impressive? It's about being present. What if it's less about performance and more about connection? That realization was a game changer. I started observing the people who made me feel calm. You know the ones. They listen with their whole face. They're not planning what to say next or trying to be witty. They're just there with you. They ask follow-up questions. They make eye contact that feels soft, not piercing. They don't rush to fill silence. And the wild part is, they aren't always the loudest, the flashiest, or the most together looking. That's when I began to shift how I showed up socially. I stopped trying to be magnetic and started being grounded. I reminded myself that not everyone has to like me, and I don't have to impress anyone. That confidence wasn't about never stumbling over my words, but about not crumbling when I did. There was one moment that sealed this for me. I was at a networking event in Brooklyn. Lots of polished people, loud conversations. I was nervous, but I promised myself, just be curious. So instead of trying to sound smart, I asked real questions. I let awkward pauses exist. And guess what? I had 3 of the most honest, fun, surprising conversations of my life. We underestimate how magnetic calm energy is. When you feel at peace with yourself, people feel safe around you. And that's powerful. I also had to stop doing one very specific thing, assuming I knew what people thought of me. That mental script, they think I'm boring, awkward, too much, not enough, wasn't reality. It was my fear speaking. Once I saw that, I started catching those assumptions in real time and replacing them with curiosity. What if they're just tired? What if I'm being hard on myself? What if they're actually enjoying this and I just don't know it? Confidence in social settings grew from there, not by being louder, but by being kinder. Kinder to others, yes, but especially to myself. And when you do that, when you soften the voice inside your own head, something opens up. You stop needing everyone to like you because you like you. You don't need to prove anything because your presence is already enough. You stop leaving conversations feeling like you failed some invisible test. You just start showing up fully, freely. And that's when people notice, that's when they lean in. Not because you've perfected your script, but because you're real, you're there. And real always resonates deeper than rehearsed. The biggest shift in my confidence didn't happen in front of a mirror or at a party or even in a conversation. It happened in the quiet, when no one was watching, no one was listening, and I was just with myself. See, I used to think confidence was something you performed. You stood tall, you smiled big, you said the right thing. But over time I realized the most magnetic people I've ever met didn't do any of that. They had something else, something quieter, something deeper. Authentic confidence isn't a costume you put on. It's the trust you build when no one's clapping. It's knowing who you are when the room goes silent. I started asking myself hard questions. Do I keep promises to myself? Do I show up when I say I will? Do I speak kindly to myself when I mess up? And for a long time, the answer was no. I'd tell myself I'd go to the gym, then ghost my own goals. I'd say I'd cut out toxic habits and find myself scrolling through them at midnight. I'd hype myself up in the morning and tear myself down by lunch. And that's when it hit me. How can I feel confident in myself when I don't even believe myself? Confidence isn't born from perfection. It's born from consistency. It's not about always doing everything right. It's about having your own back, especially when things go wrong. I started small. I made one promise a day that I could keep. Drink a full glass of water, journal for 5 minutes, text that friend back. And every time I followed through, it was like a tiny vote of trust, a whisper to myself. See, you can count on you. Over time, those whispers got louder. The self-sabotage quieted. The inner critic softened. I started recognizing my own patterns, not to shame myself, but to reclaim my power. I even dug deeper into the roots of those patterns. Why did I shrink in certain rooms? Why did I doubt myself before I even tried? Why did I let other people's voices drown out my own? That's where the real work happened. Shadow work, journaling, therapy. Looking at the parts of me I'd hidden, denied, or judged, and saying, hey, you're still worthy. It wasn't glamorous. There were nights I cried on my bathroom floor, mornings I didn't want to face the world. But piece by piece, I built something more solid than hype. I built integrity. And with that came peace. Not the fake peace of avoiding conflict, but the real kind. The kind that comes from alignment. Now, when I say no, I mean it. When I say yes, it's because I want to. I don't need applause to feel valuable, and I don't crumble without it. I don't chase rooms that weren't built for me. I create my own. Authentic confidence isn't the loudest in the room. It's the one that can sit in silence and still feel whole. It's when you stop outsourcing your worth to the world and start anchoring it inside yourself. It's when your voice, your real voice, starts to feel like home again. And the truth is, we all have that voice. It just gets buried under years of noise, of pressure, of trying to be what we think we should. But the moment you stop performing and start remembering, that's the moment everything changes. Because confidence isn't about becoming someone else, it's about returning to who you've always been. So, let's take a breath and look back. We began with a version of confidence that felt like performance, loud, shiny, exhausting. We believed it had to look a certain way, sound a certain way, please a certain kind of room. But along the way, we unlearned that. We saw how confidence isn't just about what's on the outside, how you look, how you move, how you're perceived. It's about what's within, the quiet agreements you keep with yourself, the courage to show up anyway, and the self-trust that builds not in spotlight moments, but in the shadows, We talked about physical confidence, the kind that stops comparing and starts celebrating. Social confidence, the kind that doesn't shrink or fake, but dares to speak with shaky honesty. And authentic confidence, the kind that isn't performed but practiced again and again in the small sacred choices of everyday life. And maybe the most powerful part? None of it is out of reach. It's not locked in a future version of you. It's already there, beneath the fear, beneath the doubt, beneath the old stories you've carried for way too long. Confidence doesn't start with perfection. It starts with presence. It begins the moment you stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself a chance. The moment you whisper, "Maybe I am enough," and then you act like it. Because the truth is, confidence begins when you stop running away from yourself and start walking home. If confidence isn't something you earn, but something you remember, then what else have you forgotten about yourself? What if the next version of you isn't bigger or louder, just freer? In the next video, we're going there. Because peace might just be your loudest power. If this spoke to you, subscribe and like. It means the world and helps us keep growing together.